Welcome to the Myth Lab, your portal to legends, ancient stories, and folklore from around the world.
From the epic battles of celestial beings to the cryptic tales of forgotten history, we explore the unknown.
So whether you're a seeker of forbidden knowledge, a fan of immersive storytelling, or just mesmerized by the mysterious,
the Myth Lab is the journey where chills and captivation collide.
Be sure to subscribe
and join us for another experiment in the Myth Lab.
Today we follow Persephone, the goddess of spring, into an indecent proposal. Reimagine Greek mythology with us as we explore when two unlikely fates collide, in a place where you may not have expected to be today. Persephone's bare feet sank into the soft grass and fragrant wildflowers of the meadow as she reveled in the warmth of the sun on her skin. Breeze carried sweet scents of blossoms in full bloom, and bees buzzed lazily from flower to flower. As the goddess of spring closed her eyes, she breathed in deeply, savoring the intoxicating medley of scents, honeysuckle, jasmine, lavender, that filled the air, feeling completely at peace. This was her dominion, where life sprang forth in infinite variation, constantly renewing itself. Suddenly, the earth rumbled beneath her feet. Persephone's eyes shot open as she stumbled to maintain her balance. The once gentle breeze now whipped around her, threatening to throw her off her feet. Panicked, she searched for the source of the disturbance, her heart racing with fear. Suddenly, with a great rumble, the ground split open in front of her. Persephone gasped as jagged fissures opened in the ground. Shadowy hands emerged, clawing upwards and seizing her slender arms in an icy grip. She struggled in vain against the phantom limbs dragging her down into the yawning hollow.
Mother!
Persephone's panicked cry echoed through the ruptured earth as she sank into the darkness. The last shafts of daylight faded away. Fear gripped the goddess's heart at the eerie silence. She trembled, stumbling blindly over the cold stone floor. In the world above, the once lush meadows decayed rapidly. Vibrant wildflowers withered and grasses turned brittle without Persephone's touch. The sun's warmth faded as Demeter's grief brought an icy chill over the mortal realm.
My daughter!
The goddess wailed, her pain cracking the barren earth. Snow swirled as icy tears fell from Demeter's eyes. All joy leached from the world in Persephone's absence. Dark clouds veiled the sky as the mother's sorrow signaled the coming of an unending winter. Persephone awakened slowly, her eyes fluttering as she adjusted to the dim light. She found herself lying serene in a garden, the likes of which she had never seen. Strange, luminous flowers in sunless shades of violet, sapphire, and silver swayed gently, their faint glow casting an eerie ambiance over the distance. Their petals were smooth and delicate. Persephone reached out and gently caressed one. It crooned a haunting melody at her touch, a wordless whisper that seemed to echo from the depths of the ground in the vast abyss. She stood up cautiously, her chiffon gown gliding softly across the grass underfoot. The sky above was a vast expanse of darkness, speckled with glimmering constellations that she didn't recognize. The moon was impossibly large, bathing the garden in its otherworldly light. Persephone's voice trembled as she asked,
Where am I?
The ethereal scenery surrounding her was both enchanting and unnerving. Every step she took felt like she was walking on eggshells, the weight of unanswered questions looming in the air. This place held unknown dangers and hidden truths, a dangerous maze that teased her with glimpses of its sinister secrets. But despite the fear coursing through her veins, a strange and irresistible allure pulled her deeper into its treacherous depths. Until a faint rustling sound drew her attention to its elegant marble fountain. Its water shimmered, silver and black in the moonlight. As Persephone drew nearer, she saw a single bloom floating on the surface, an exquisite flower, indigo fading to silver at the petal's edge. She recognized it instantly, though it had never been grown in her gardens above.
The enigmatic blossom?
She breathed. A rare and mysterious flower that was said to only grow in the realm of Hades. As goddess of spring, Persephone knew every plant that grew in the mortal world above, so the sight of this exotic bloom filled her with dread. This was no earthly flower. Its presence could only mean one thing. She held it up to the moonlight, examining its beauty with both awe and anxiety. Its scent was intoxicating, euphoric, dark, filling her senses with a strange mixture of dread and wonderment. She turned to leave, but a voice stopped her right in her tracks.
Impressive, isn't it?
Movement at the far end of the garden drew her attention. A lone figure stood there, half cloaked in the shadow. Persephone froze, watching the tall shape approach with slow, deliberate steps. As she neared, she glimpsed pale skin, dark, piercing eyes that peered from beneath the wreath of smoky blossoms. Persephone stood paralyzed as Hades, Lord of the Underworld, emerged from the shadows, unsure if she should remain still or flee. Though they stood yards apart, she could feel the power emanating from his imposing figure. Hades halted before her, silent and obscure. So Persephone mustered as much courage as she could and spoke.
Why have you brought me here?
Hades' expression remained unreadable.
This is my domain, and all who dwell here are under my protection.
His voice was rich and deep, echoing slightly in the vast chamber.
I don't need your protection. I want to return home. Now.
Persephone declared, holding her chin high. Hades tilted his head, as if intrigued by her show of defiance.
There are dangers in both realms, but here, you could reign beside me as queen.
Persephone's knees buckled.
Become queen of the underworld.
The offer intrigued and frightened her. She thought of her mother and the picturesque gardens now turning barren.
You have a choice, Persephone. But choose wisely, for such opportunities are rare.
With that, the shadowy figure seemed to melt into the darkness and disappear and retreat back into the shadows. Persephone's heart raced as she watched Hades disappear into the darkness. Confusion mixed with anger in her mind, unsure of how she felt about being taken against her will. A part of her was ashamedly grateful for the experiences and excitement, but another part longed for the comfort and familiarity of the world above. She couldn't help but wonder if Hades truly cared for her, or if he was just using her for his own selfish desires. Persephone turned slowly, taking in the vastness of the underworld garden surrounding her. Despite her fear and longing for home, she could not help but be captivated by its strange, haunting beauty. Luminous blossoms of shades of violet, azure, and silver dotted the inky landscape, the otherworldly fragrance equally as enticing as they were unsettling. Serpentine pathways wove through the weeping willows and long, trailing branches that seemed to sway gently even without a breeze. In the distance, she could see the glittering obsidian walls of Hades' palace against the perpetual night sky, dotted with stars and swirling galaxies. Ghostly servants floated by her, their vapory forms bowing soundlessly as they passed. She wandered aimlessly through the halls and the arching columns, soft whisperings echoing in her wake. Although everything was new and unfamiliar, she found distorted solace in the protection of Hades. Turning a corner, she discovered an alcove draped in cobweb silk. The inviting cushions, An hypnotic fragrance soon lulled Persephone into a deep slumber. Persephone drifted into a lucid dreamscape, neither fully awake nor truly asleep, as visions began to dance behind her eyelids. The alcove around her faded into a mist as she felt herself ascending, her spirit soaring up through the netherworld. She dreamt of her mother's radiant smile turning cold and mournful, of vibrant meadows withering into frost-bitten plains. But then the darkness gave way to a new landscape. Rolling hills blanketed in the enigmatic blossoms, their lunar glow beckoning her towards unknown realms and power. Her mind drifted deeper into the realm of dreams. She found herself wandering in the same ethereal garden in a hazy state where everything seemed to sway. The soft melody of a lute echoed faintly in the distance. Persephone felt an irresistible pull, her feet gliding of their own accord down the garden path. In the clearing ahead stood a tall, broad-shouldered figure with dark, flowing robes, having a discussion with a shadowy messenger that resembled Hermes. But he disappeared as she drew nearer. All else faded away as Hades' chiseled features and imposing physique turned into her view.
You've returned.
Her voice slipping past her lips without a forethought. Persephone halted, unsure why she said that. She couldn't explain why the god's presence disturbed her so deeply, yet she couldn't deny the intense fascination he ignited within her. Every fiber of her being was drawn to him, but at the same time, the sense of fear and uncertainty gnawed at her. Hades extended his hand to her. In his palm lay a luminous pomegranate, its ruby flesh glinting against the light.
You need not fear this place here, beside me,
he murmured. She could feel his intense stare, as if he was trying to uncover every secret hidden within her. Part of her wanted to run away and hide, but yet another part of her yearned for him to see her and understand her completely. She was torn between vulnerability and self-preservation in the face of his penetrating gaze. Persephone reached out, her fingers brushing the fruit. In that moment, she felt an irresistible pull once again, the inexorable force drawing her towards her fate. This was a choice, she realized, but it was also her destiny. As she circled the fountains near the grotto of the garden, she allowed the fingers of her free hand to trail the edges, then began to wash the pomegranate inside the dark water. As she peered into its glossy depth, she saw a reflection ripple and change, a wreath of spring flowers transforming into a glittering crown, her simple chiton garment replaced by radiant robes of the night. She looked gorgeous. Persephone's heart raced as she gazed upon her new form. She felt a surge of power flow through her veins, a sense of boundless possibilities and endless potential. The vision was both thrilling and unnerving. Hades watched her knowingly, a small smile playing on his lips. A benevolent voice arose from behind her as he asked,
Do you see now, little goddess?
the power you might wield?
I have watched you struggle between your longing for what you knew and the curiosity you feel stirring within. You need not choose one or the other, Persephone. There are always shades of gray.
Persephone spun around, only to come face to face with Hades, who seemed to materialize from the shadows right in front of her. She couldn't escape his intense gaze now, which seemed to deliberately bore into the depths of her soul.
Accept your place here, beside me, and all the riches of my realm shall be yours. Refuse, and you will forever dwell in its fading memory.
She clutched the drenched pomegranate firmly as Hades' lips curled into a cunning smile. Then, the dream dissolved around her, colors bleeding away until only darkness remained. Persephone's eyes fluttered open, and she awoke with a start, her heart racing again, as remnants of the vivid dream faded from her mind. She glanced around, relieved to find herself back in the familiar chambers in Mount Olympus. Golden morning light streamed in through the open windows as a soft breeze rustled in the silken curtains. A gentle knock sounded at the door, and her mother Demeter entered the room.
Good morning, my child.
Demeter said warmly, embracing Persephone as she arose from her bed.
Did you sleep well?
Persephone nodded, though her thoughts lingered on the mysterious vision that had felt so real. She dressed and followed her mother out into the gardens, inhaling the sweet floral scents wafting in the morning breeze. Demeter paused to admire the blossoms carpeting the meadow, gazing upon the exquisite indigo flowers with approval.
Such curious blooms. I don't recall planting these yet. Here they are, scattered all through your garden.
Persephone's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the ethereal flower from her dream. The enigmatic blossoms, dark and haunting, yet undeniably beautiful.
They are lovely,
Persephone managed to say, her voice faint. She felt a strange, inexplicable longing to keep their secret origin. Demeter smiled.
Indeed. Perhaps we have your companions to thank for these.
She gestured at the playful nature spirits darting amongst the trees, but her daughter seemed distracted, gazing out over the meadow with a conflicted gleam in her emerald eyes. Then, after returning to her bedroom, Persephone saw it. A single pomegranate, its skin a deep crimson, laying freshly damp atop her silken sheets. Persephone's breath stilled as she stared at the pomegranate resting on her bed, its skin glistening with beads of water. She approached it slowly, her earlier dream flooding back in vivid detail. This was no ordinary fruit. It radiated a palpable energy, jolting resonance from the realm she had visited in her slumber. As she reached to pick it up, she noticed a small scroll of parchment tucked beside it. With trembling fingers, she unfurled the note and read the elegant script.
I extend a final offering. Fruit from the realm that awaits us, together, in eternity.
It was unsigned. And that concludes another episode of The Myth Lab. We hope you enjoy diving deep into the realms of storytelling with us.
And big thanks to all our listeners. Your support means everything to us. Leave us a review. It helps us and our podcast keep the adventure going.
Be sure to subscribe to The Myth Lab so you never miss an episode, as we continue our journey through the myths and legends that have captivated humanity for centuries.
Consider donating to our Patreon, where you can find information on exclusive episodes, behind the scenes, and collaborations with us.
And as always, may the moonlight behind you illuminate your path to the Myth Lab.